For me, when is now means that life happens in the now. We can't change the past. We have no control over the future. And so when we focus on the now, what that means for me is that you turn now around and it means you have won. So when is now means you have won in the present.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of When Is Now. I'm Capella. Thank you for coming. Thank you, all our new listeners, old listeners. I'm mildly obsessed with today's guest. Her name is Dr. Oneeka Williams. She is an author. She's a speaker. She's a professor. She's a Harvard Medical School graduate. She did her undergrad at Johns Hopkins University. She is one of, I don't know, it's like 0.00000% of Black women urological surgeons in our country. She's a force. It is imperative that you listen to this episode through, because when she went to school in Barbados, the schools were segregated for boys and girls, and the girls did not have science classes. And she knew that she wanted science. She wanted to go into the sciences. So her mother lobbied and got her into the boys' school to get her science classes. And of course, has just like changed the game how students are educated in Barbados. So after Barbados, she comes to the States. She goes to Johns Hopkins University for undergrad. She met with some adversity. I will let her tell the story, but basically her initial advisor told her that she should go back to Barbados because she would not make it in medical school in the U.S., and she should go be a doctor in Barbados. Not only did she make it in medical school, she got accepted to every single medical school that she applied to and decided on Harvard. She is an absolute unicorn in this field. It is all white, male dominated. She has an amazing impact on our community. We talk about the importance of self-care. We talk about reframing challenges and the power that you can get. We talk about her books and her beloved character, Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo. It's a series that is recognized by the AMA. And we talk about why the island of positivity is like the best place to live. I had met her husband for a film. Her husband said, who is also an MD, you've got to meet my wife. We met, we clicked right away. She's an AKA, and I just adore her. And yes, so please enjoy it. You're going to get a lot of stuff from her. She's extremely honest, and enjoy. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today, we have Dr. Oneeka Williams. I'm so excited about this, and I want to throw it right to you, Doctor, and let me hear your interpretation. It's sort of a tradition in the podcast. We want to hear your interpretation of when is now.
For me, when is now means that life happens in the now. We can't change the past. We have no control over the future. And so when we focus on the now, what that means for me is that you turn now around and it means you have won. So when is now means you have won in the present.
Whoa. Okay. So let me first of all be quite honest. I just realized that when is now, the acronym was win. I just realized that like the other day. I didn't even know that for the longest. And then you just blew my mind with the turnaround of now is won. We already won. It's going to be rich, y'all. It's going to be rich. Stick with us. All right. So there's a lot of stuff we could talk about because we have Dr. Oneeka. We have Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo. And we have what I would like to start with. If you don't mind, I want to go back. It can be, like I always say, it can be 5 years old. It can be when you lost your first tooth. What were some of the transformational moments in your childhood that led to this narrative that you are living today?
Certainly for me, that's clear. At age 13, I had decided I wanted to be a doctor and discovered that I needed to have physics in order to be a doctor. So I was in Barbados at an all-girls school. My twin brother was at an all-boys school. And at the all-girls school, physics was not available. They had decided girls just don't do well at physics. and it was not one of the subjects that was offered. And so my parents, especially my mom, who was this amazingly powerful woman of God, science teacher who wanted to be a doctor, but growing up in Guyana, her parents didn't have the money to send her to medical school. So she went to undergraduate college and became a teacher and passionate about science. And she said, my dream is not going to be deferred for another generation because of lack of access. So they marked themselves up to the Ministry of Education and said, what is this foolishness? Girls can absolutely do science and do physics. Why is she being limited? And so the solution was that I was transferred from the all girls school to the all boys school, where I became the first girl to enter a class of all boys high school. 100 boys in that grade. I walked in there like Ruby Bridges. But that was a transformational moment in my life. It showed me the power of raising your hand. It showed me the power of advocacy of those who believe in you, my parents and my teachers. It showed me the power of, even though we have these differences, that I connected with those boys with our commonalities, which were about our common goals and aspirations. And we learned from each other the richness of the environment based on this very different set of perspectives that I could offer and that they could offer me, and to create this rich tapestry of experiences that changed the way that I looked at I can't. Like, what? I can't? Nope. Doesn't exist. We can. I can.
You can and you did. Now, so that was it. I didn't think that's where you were going when you said that the solution was to put you in the boys' school. So tell me, when did the girls' school, how many years later did the girls' school have the equal opportunities?
Well, what happened then, it opened doors for other girls to enter the class. So by the time I graduated, there were 2 other girls who had joined my class. And then the lower schools became kind of integrated so that both boys and girls now became part of the same classes, so that now physics was offered across both the boys and the girls' school. And so it now had this construct where there was no longer this delineation between what boys could do and what girls could do. They became this equal opportunity access.
I want to hear more about your mom. Do you want to say, I mean, your mother, like a little more, please?
Oh my God. I mean, my mom, if I talk about my mom, I probably will cry. I mean, my mom is just the most, I mean, she is definitely the wind beneath my wings. She is someone who has always demonstrated this love of learning, this curiosity, this commitment to young people. Can I tell you that oh my God, I have to tell you this story. So she has been teaching for 16 years. She always tutors. People bring their kids to her home from the time we were in Guyana, tutoring in science and math. She has never taken a single cent, not a penny, for these young people who come, many of them without the means to be able to have the access. And so she has transformed the lives of so many and young people, in whom she always said, well, her favorite poem is by Edgar Allan Gatz, who says, equipment, a brain to use if you will be wise. And so they come being labeled as they can't do math, they're delayed, developed, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And she said, do you have a brain? Yes, you can use that brain. And so it's just the fundamentals. What happens in education so often is that people don't take the time to make sure that everyone has the fundamental, the building block. And so kids get left behind. And if you didn't get the building blocks when you were at a particular level because you didn't work in a school that had those resources, et cetera, then you fall further and further and further behind. And it becomes this snowball and domino effect. And so she steps back and said, this is not the kids' fault. We have done a disservice to these children. So I have to build the foundation, because when you build a foundation on solid rock, building the house, the building is easy. And she has demonstrated that over and over again. So many of her students will come back all these years later and pay homage to her because she was literally that single person in their lives who not just believed, I mean, they had parents who believed in them, but they didn't have the skills and the tools to help the children. So she's very, very inspirational. And she's still, let me just tell you this one little quick story. She still goes to this educational consulting, one of the schools in Cambridge, the Banneker School. So she goes to school every day and does, teacher development, curriculum design, and so on. And she normally takes the T, so she takes the bus to the T, and then she walks from the T to the school. And of course, when the weather is bad, it can be challenging. So she had a young lady who had lived with her daughter for a while, and the daughter was going to the same school that my mom was going to. So this year, at the beginning of the school year, she was telling the young lady about the fact that the orange line was under construction. So they had stopped the T from those stops. So she now had to take this shuttle to further downtown, and it was taking so much time. The traffic was just a mess. And the young lady said to her, she said, but Mom Williams, there's a school bus that my daughter took while she was living with you. The school bus doesn't come very far from her. And she said, oh my God. So she talked to them, and now she gets on the yellow school bus, 6:15 in the morning, with those kids. She rides a school bus to school and back home. And I told her, I said, you have to come get a video of you on the school bus because she loves it. It gives her an opportunity to engage with the kids and to hear about just talk with them. And they love it. She loves it. I'm like, she is going to school on a yellow school bus, and it's just beyond excited. It's been so amazing.
So when you get this video, Doctor, will you post it on your Instagram so we can all enjoy it?
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And we can find Dr. Dee Dee's Instagram in the show notes. The stories about your mom, I appreciate you. I appreciate you sharing them. There was a lot there. And it's taking me to stories of my mom. But we talked about this previously, sort of an initial experience or reaction that you had when you came from Barbados to start your undergrad, right? When you were first sitting at your advisor's table, is that right? And my mother had a similar experience. And hers, I'll tell the details of hers, but it was dismissive. It was rude. It was inaccurate. My mother went on to get her PhD. And then actually she passed away in May, and she was already accepted to law school for that spring or that fall. She was going to go to law school because she wanted to spend her retirement with a small little law office in Detroit to serve people that couldn't afford lawyers. And my mom waited tables all when we were growing up. So 22 years, she waited tables. My father was a custodian in Detroit Public Schools. And they both went back to school. My father went back, got his GED, bachelor's and master's. My mom went back, got her bachelor's, master's, PhD, and they graduated the same day, same ceremony. It was beautiful.
That is so
and
beautiful.
I want to say one more thing about the students or young people that are marginalized and those moments that are transformational, like when adults do believe in us. And on top of this, the narratives that we tell ourselves, because I was a product of Detroit Public Schools. And I talk about this in my first podcast. I never thought I was smart. I always thought I had street sense. I had common sense. I worked hard and people liked me. And those four things would add up to appearing to be very smart, very book smart. But that sort of narrative and not having we didn't have a library in my school because they couldn't afford a librarian. So we only could go to the library if our teacher walked us there and sat with us there for an hour. So that's that narrative. And then having someone could be just one person that believes in you really is transformational. So I can't even imagine how many lives your mother transformed. So impactful, so powerful.
Yes. Yeah.
But so we fast forward. Your mother is an absolute pioneer. She's a revolutionary. She's making things happen. She gets you in physics. And then From there, what? We come up here to the States for medical school, or what happens next?
Yeah, so I leave Barbados and I come up to Hopkins for undergraduate as a biophysics major. So the same physics that I was told that I couldn't do, that became, part of my major. And the first week that I was there, as you alluded to, the pre-med advisor, who I was very intentional because I said I was very clear. I'm coming here to be a doctor. I thought I was going to go to Hopkins Medical School because that was kind of the Harvard of medical schools in Barbados. That was the place that people went to, as far as I knew. And so I found her that first week that let me find the person who's going to give me the blueprint to be successful. And I walked in, I had my balloon inflated with hope, just ready to just tackle the world. And she looked at me and she said, after I introduced myself, she said, you're not going to get into an American medical school. She said, you would have to be exceptional. Foreign students don't get into American medical school, so you should plan to go back to the Caribbean. And so in one fell swoop, she had taken a big dagger and stuck it in my balloon of hope. And I felt so deflated. I felt, this is someone who does not know me. How could she possibly make these assumptions just based on what I look like and where I'm from? And of course, phone call to the parents, the mom. And this is when I talk about advocacy, what we do as parents, as adults in kids' lives, where because they had been filling what I call my treasure chest from the time I was very young. You're smart, you're courageous, you're brave, you could do anything that you want, not even the sky's the limit. You can work hard work. My mama says the hope of reward is in hard work. And so all of those things that they could put in, that they could remind me, remember who you are. Remember what you are capable of. One person does not define what is possible for you. So if this is not the person who is going to help you, move the heck on. And that's what I did. Then I give her a job to do. And so you're going to find who is going to be on your team. And clearly, that is not the person who's going to be on your team. So pray for her and move on smartly. And so that's what I did. I found another advisor. They filled up. I had to, it's my treasure chest analogy. It was filled with all this wonderful jewels that she had just dumped all this poop into my treasure chest. And so I had to do some clean out. My 5 hours of positivity, like clean the poop out, get rid of it. And so fast forward, by the time I was graduating a semester early, I had gotten into every single medical school that I had applied to. I only applied to the top medical school. And I would go back to her before graduating to say, do you remember me? And she didn't. And I said, well, let me remind you. And when I told her, she was like, oh, but you're different. No. I said, the only way that I was different is because I had a foundation of people who literally poured into me and reminded me that you could not derail my destiny. But there are a lot of people who don't have that. And so there's students who would have come through, and I've heard those stories like your mom story over and over and over again. People who say, well, I wanted to do medicine, but I wanted to do this, but this person told me this, I wanted to apply to this school, but. So there's so many of our children who are discouraged and who negativity is poured into them because of bias, because of stereotype.
That's right.
And they believe because you're the authority, you're the advisor, you're the person who has seen people come and go.
That's right.
Who we put our trust in believing that what it takes to be successful. So when you say from point blank, jump start, that you can't do it, a lot of people bow and buckle to that. And so that was, I said, that's what I'm coming back. I'm not coming back to gloat. Even though I was like, how you like me now? Hello.
Look at these. Look at these. Yes.
But so that hopefully the next time someone that looks for me comes through your door, that somewhere in your mind you will remember this story and that you will approach them very differently. And so from there,
you went back.
Went on to Harvard to medical school and just fell in love with surgery and walked into the operating room and was like, I felt at home. My hands are great. It just felt like that was me. And that was what's happened in medicine. I think different people choose different specialties because it speaks to them. There's something that resonates, that makes you feel, wow, I love this. And how I got into urology, that's a little bit of a long story, but basically went to the VA, was shadowing a urology residence, and I'll be a little bit graphic here, but literally an older Black man came in. He had been afflicted by this kind of flesh-eating bacteria that had infected and affected his perineal scrotal area. So to save his life, the urologist had to cut off all the skin of his scrotum. And then they had to put his testicles in his inner thigh. And so when he came back, it's the first time I'm seeing him as I'm shadowing these residents, he was coming back to have a conversation about reconstruction. And to see the hope in his eyes, I mean, like, this is the seat of many people's manhood. Like, to have your genitals be disfigured in that way is very demoralizing. And to see him come with this hope, with this trust, with this belief that they were going to restore him to just feeling confident about who he is, even though he was elderly. And to hear the way that they engaged and interacted with him and reassured him that they were going to help him, the light bulb went off for me. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want to do. And so became a urologic surgeon, male-dominated specialty. Like, nope. When I was training, I was like, hardly anybody looked like me. We are unicorns as Black women urologists. The numbers are increasing, but it's really the boys' school experience stood me in good stead. How do you develop a tough skin? How do you reframe your experience? And how do you don't take things personally? How do you begin to understand that you're called for a time such as this, and you're going to have roadblocks, you're going to have challenges, you're going to cry, you're going to kind of curl up in a ball, now and again, but that this is your destiny. And so you pick yourself up, you find the people who help you, you find experiences that add to you, you find the things you're thankful for, you don't dwell on all of the bad stuff, but you find those things that help you to redirect your focus. And so, board certified urologic surgeon, along the way got involved with a bunch of Black women service groups, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Links Incorporated, Jack and Jill, all of these service organizations that were about the business of how do we elevate our young men and women, young girls and boys. And so did a lot of mentoring through our church, led the church ministries and health, and just many different ways to give back and serve. And one day was volunteering. We had started a chapter of Science Club for Girls at our church, Myrtle Baptist Church in Newton. And I was doing this activity that probably was a little much for 8-year-olds, but I had ordered these cow hearts. I had ordered these cow hearts. They were huge, smelly, didn't look anything like what a heart would look like. I brought it into the little lab that we had set up, and I said, we're going to learn about the circulatory system. And some of them had bolted to the hills. I was like, okay, well, clearly that's not going to work. But then there were others that were like, oh. And then I constructed this whole analogy about the circulatory system being like the New York subway system. And the heart is Grand Central Station. And then all the other organs are little subway stations around the system. And the blood vessels are like the train tracks. And like the little train cars are the red blood cells, and then the CO2 and the oxygen molecules are the passengers hopping on and off of these red blood cells,
Oh my
aka
goodness.
train cars. And I could see the light bulb go off in their eyes. And that was the moment, there's another epiphany that said, I want to be able to translate scientific concepts in a way that creates these relatable everyday experiences and makes it easy for kids to connect, so to develop an affinity, like science is all around us, that they begin to have this lack of intimidation, that they're fearless and they're not afraid that this is something that I can't do. Like they have this mindset already that tells them that they can't do it. And that started this journey of how was I going to do that? And then I layer on top of that, so many of our friends at that time were having kids, and I'm looking for books. And I can't find any books where kids in the books look like the kids of my friends, that they're positive, powerful characters that communicate that you are powerful, you can do it, you can be a scientist, you can be anything that you want. And that's why I said, what? They don't exist. Girls in STEM, lack of representation in the workforce. Girls don't believe that they could be mathematicians. And I have this wonderful gift. My dad's a journalist. So we grew up writing. We grew up in this richly expressive environment. And to listen to him talk, it's just like, he's so eloquent and just like his voice is just so resonant. And so we grew up in this rich environment of people coming in for conferences and sitting at the dinner table and hearing discourses about all of the things happening around the world and so on and so forth. So I had this gift of writing, of narrative, of writing poetry, of storytelling, because I was raised with it. I had both the left brain and the right brain thing going on. And I said, I'm going to write and create a character that integrates all of these things. And so that's how Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo and her powers of positivity were born.
So if I'm hearing you properly, this was instilled, like the agency, the optimism, the positivity, the hope. This was instilled in you very naturally growing up by your parents, who sound phenomenal.
Yes.
And so that motivated Dr. Oneeka to keep putting one foot in front of the other, even in the face of very tough times. I'm sure getting through Harvard Medical School. And you actually have 2 graduate degrees from Harvard.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
and this is the Master's in Public Health in full effect, because what you just said is so powerful, which is that I became this Dr. Oneeka with the optimism, et cetera, because of what they poured into me. I'm like, imagine if I could pour that into young girls, young kids of color. If I could give them that gift that I got, that it doesn't just have to come from only your parents. We want it to come from first degree parents, et cetera, but there are also ways to show them, to pour into, to create, to surround them with these messages that make them so, just so convinced and confident.
Yes.
But of course, I have this positive, I can do it.
So is it accurate to say that Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo was sort of this character that you created for STEM, for young girls, for Black young girls, women of color, young girls of color, was sort of the antithesis of this whole push towards the island of positivity? Like, is that because you had it naturally, but you might have not been spreading it the way you're spreading it today?
Exactly. So creating the island of positivity and developing Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo and having this huge intersection of all of these elements of who she is, which is a manifestation. She's kind of my alter ego of who I am, and packaging it in a way that could, one of the things that I want to say is that our children are brilliant. I look at the way that they have mastered the technology, the games, the phones, and all of these things.
I agree.
And they will rise. They will rise to them. So when I started writing these books and created this world, Island of Positivity, with this girl, so the powers of positivity and intersection, I wanted to write books with rich texts, meaningful characters, words that would make both parents and children have conversations. I didn't want to write a C-spot run book. I wanted to write a book that would grow with children, that parents would get something from it, that would encourage them to read, that they would learn, that it would stimulate how they then pour it into their kids. Because even when you look at the modeling of what happens in the Dee Dee Dynamo books, the first books when she was born, and her parents looked at her hands and said, "You have gifted hands. Not even the sky is going to be your limit." Like how, so just this modeling of how parents speak into the lives of their children, like the brain and the wiring, 90% happens before kids are 5. So we have an opportunity to be very intentional. And so I want parents to read it with their children. I want them to simplify it. So for the 1-year-old, the visual is so powerful. If all they're seeing is Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo saving Pluto, here's a Black girl, superhero, super surgeon. That imprinting about who is powerful and who can save the world without any words is incredibly, incredibly impactful. And can I tell you, one of the things about this book that has blessed me immensely is that even though the real intention that I said was around, girls of color and kids of color, and then expanding out to all girls, the reason that it was important for me to expand and to create a world where all kids can find themselves, find touch points, that they can connect, not just based on what she looked like, her gender or her color, but based on who she is. But they see the character strengths that they also see themselves in and they connect to. Because ultimately, if we're going to break down stereotypes, if we're going to break down bias, if we're going to change the lens of the world perspective, we have to invite other kids into these silos that says, oh, this is just for Black girls, this is just for Black kids. And so if other kids don't get to participate and to connect with a Black kid, a world of a Black girl superhero that they feel connected to despite the fact that they have a different skin color, it's because this world reflects some of who they are. And so I have friends who have little white boys who will send me pictures. They said, my son goes to bed with Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo book. That's the first book they pick on their bookshelf. They love Fate of the Flying Ambulance and like, sorry. So when we talk about the wiring that happens before our kids are 5 and their world perspective, this book offers a world that invites all children to see how they are connected to one another so that it doesn't become, number one, unusual for a Black girl to be an astronaut, and it doesn't become unusual for all kids, majority kids, to see the value, the worth, and to have the messages that we're all amazing, powerful, gifted, and have the potential to change the world.
That's right. So there's 3 things I want to say about the books. 1, it's a 10-year anniversary from the first release, yes?
That is correct.
Congratulations.
That is correct. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I'm just, wow.
10 years.
Just amazing.
It goes
and despite, and I feel really proud of myself because I stuck to it, right? I mean, there are many times when it's easy to give up because I have this huge vision, which I still believe will become manifest, that she will be a household name, bigger than Dora the Explorer. There will be cartoons and merchandise and a theme park in Disney. I mean, like, this is how powerful I believe that Dr. Dee Dynamo is. And so that is my belief. But things happen slowly. It does also sometimes you're patient, but despite the fact that things have not necessarily, if I had were to have this like vision in terms of when that vision was going to come to fruition, I would have hoped that by 10 years it would have. But I have not given up. Not given up. And so at this 10-year anniversary, in this context of where we are, she is more powerful and more necessary than ever. Our kids are surrounded by so many negative messages. And when we look at what's happening in health, one of the things that the pandemic has really shed a spotlight on are the disparities or the amount Black and brown people in communities of color.
Yes.
And so what I'm doing for the 10th anniversary is starting and launching the Positive Health series, where now Dee Dee is taking on the challenges, the health of our community, starting with hypertension. So the first book is Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo's Hypertension Takedown. And we're talking health literacy, we're talking approaching our health in a positive perspective, and we're talking education, understanding the silent killer that many of our communities don't really understand why it is such a problem, does not detect it in the way in which it needs to. And partnering, bringing, when we talked about pipelines off screen earlier, how do we develop the pipeline to bring more kids of color into medicine? Because we know that when patients are taken care of by physicians or healthcare providers who look like them, they do better, they're more compliant, the outcomes are better. So how do we create this? How do we plant that seed from very early? We do it by beginning to engage our young people in the health of their parents, in the health of their neighbors, in the health of their communities, and begin to have them develop that sense of meaning of how it feels. When you are literally saving a life by checking someone's blood pressure, identifying that it is high, and helping them to get to the medical care that they need. So I think it's going to be a very transformational type of book that is going to be a creative and innovative way of addressing improving health literacy in all of the other ways that it's being done. But this is doing it in a very, very imaginative and creative way.
Imaginative and creative, engaging. And the other thing I wanted to talk about is like your illustrations. I feel like the illustrations are a big part of the message in the book. And I just want to thank you for them. They're beautiful.
Yes. Illustrating, visual is so much. And what I love about Dr. Dee Dee is that she is, my mom said this with the little boy and the kids in the classroom, like, Dr. Dee, she's a doctor. And she's a problem solver. Very important. She is a problem solver. So it imbues them with the power and the understanding that we're all problem solvers. Being a scientist, all it means is that you're solving problems. And we solve little problems, big problems. Every day, we are solving little problems. And so that they connect to that power within themselves, but they can solve problems.
Doctor, there's so many places we could go. I want to maybe say one thing. You and I met because of a film that I produced. And our impact producer was lucky enough to meet, I don't know how she found your husband, who is also an MD. And then he heard me speak for maybe 3 minutes. And he said, you must meet my wife. And so you and I met. And this particular project was initiated by 3 Black women MDs, and it had a couple different objectives. But one of the objectives was increasing the pipeline of people of color, Black doctors, into the medical field, because it can be difficult for first generation doctors, debt, and everything else that we've talked about. But for you, you're a urologist. Of that, and you've said a few times that you've gone to plenty of conferences, plenty of classes, plenty of training or operating rooms, and there weren't many people that look like you. What's the number? How many Black women urologists do we have in the U.S. and tell us why it's such a luxury to have one. The number will tell us why it's a luxury to have one. What's the number on this?
Yeah, so of all of the physicians in this country, 0.001% are Black female urologists. So we're few and far between. The numbers are increasing. I will say that.
Good.
But it is one of the reasons that when someone says to me, you don't look like a urologist, I really don't take offense. Because I don't. I don't. So it becomes an opportunity to educate and to be able to spotlight that, yes, we do exist. And that we are we need to change the system so that we're not such unicorns. But
yes,
we're small in number, and it is a privilege. It is a privilege and an honor to do what we do. I have to tell you, one of the things that over the last couple months, the statistic that was released by the U.S. Department of Labor identified of all of the occupations across the country, urologists were the number one most stressful occupation. We topped. We topped.
Wow.
So it is rigorous. It is arduous. We take care of across the landscape of a broad swath of medical and surgical issues. Very, very demanding and high burnout. And so you have to be so incredibly intentional about finding the joy and about setting the boundaries. But it is becoming increasingly, particularly when you said a luxury, to have a Black female urologist is definitely a novelty.
We talked about, so I want to make this clear for our listeners. You still practice. You're a practicing medical doctor. You are also an author. Correct. You're a speaker, a thought leader. You're active in your church, the AKAs, the Links, Jack and Jill. You have a family. You have a whole family.
Yep. On the board of the Museum of Science. Just joined the board of the William James College of Psychology. So the William James College, the School of Psychology. So, yes, busy but blessed. Busy but blessed. But really, I think that reframing our situation, our lives, from a perspective of optimism is really, really, it has been instrumental for me in terms of how I can still practice urology with positivity and joy. In spite of the rigor, it is 100% necessary to do the work that we do.
So, all right, I want to say one more thing about Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo, and then I want to transition because you also write books. Even though this series is for adults can get a lot out of it. You have books out there, and actually one is behind you. It says Not Today, Not Negativity. And you talk about these 5 habits of positivity, 5 habits of positivity, a HAP, right? And I want to talk about that. But first, lastly, I just want to say that Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo has been, what's the proper wording? Recognized by the American Women's Medical Association, or it is in conjunction with or collaborating with? Tell me about that.
Yes. So the American Medical Women's Association has identified Dee Dee as Dr. Dee Dee as a very important platform for being able to encourage girls of color, young women of color to go into medicine. I have partnered with them over the years, multiple different things, racism in medicine, and the Dee Dee was the kind of the marshal at the international conference a couple of years ago in New York. But I will be working with them. And so we're really, one of our goals and objectives is to have Dee Dee Dynamo books in every pediatrician's office across this country. And so actively we'll be working at looking at grants, kind of how to do that. But that it is very, very powerful force of connectivity and connectedness and education to be able to help, our girls and our young people to see themselves in medicine, to see the beauty of what it offers, and to not be afraid to try.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Once you and I met, I followed you on LinkedIn immediately. You are a relentless, and for anyone that posts anything anywhere, it is a job. Posting stuff is a job. It takes time. It takes thoughtfulness. I mean, it takes language. It takes photographs. This stuff takes time. And you are I recommend anyone follow Dr. Dee Dee on any of her social media. Well, Dr. Oneeka, but also Dr. Dee Dee on her social media. And so LinkedIn, you really, I fell in love with this community that you've built, and we call it the Island of Positivity, right? And did that come from the 5 Habits or the book, or did the book come from the Island of Positivity? Like, can you run us a little bit about this evolution?
Yes. So when I created Dr. Dee Dee, she lives on the Island of Positivity. And so so that's her home. So the Island of Positivity was born at the same time as Dr. Dee Dee. And it was really steeped in, number one, I grew up on an island. So,
yes.
And the island is it's like my happy place, surrounded by the beaches and the sunshine and the waves and the water and just the palm trees. There's just something about being on an island in the tropics that's just so energizing, so beautiful, so calming. Yes. And so I knew that as I was going to create her home, it was going to be on the island, and that this optimism that is a part of who I am, I knew that that was going to be an integral part of who she was and where she grew up. But I also understood that I was creating this kind of magical, super, natural character, that her powers were going to have to come as I was going to be doing this science connection. I was like, well, her power is going to come from both these powers of positivity as it links to electrical energy, so that she lives on Battery Lane, and her energy, she connects up at night to the battery family where she gets recharged. So it gives these messages of the importance of eating for recharging and connecting into your energy source to be recharged. So it has that interplay of the positivity as this kind of optimism, as the positivity as a source of power, because it comes, it's connected to her dynamo. Her name, Dynamo, came from this electrical, this movement, this kind of visual of just this ball of energy, just on the move, just changing lives and transforming lives as she goes around the universe. So that was the connection. And one of the things that really happened over time was that as I would speak, be invited to speak at audiences that would be intergenerational, people would come up to me and the adults would say, well, those 5 habits of positivity, do you have them written down somewhere? Like, where can I find those 5 habits of positivity, et cetera, et cetera? And then I made this connection, of course, which was very organic because this is how I grew up, is that my parents were very optimistic. And they believed that there was a solution, that they weren't going to dwell. When I walked into those class of 100 boys, my parents had never said to me, this is going to be hard. You're going to be different. There was nothing about the challenges that I would face. They're like, oh, good. You're going to transfer to the boys' school. You're going to be able to do physics along with everything else. And you're going to be great. You got a job to do. So I had they never planted any seeds that this was going to be a challenge for me. So I recognized that the importance of parents having that optimistic perspective is literally not only model for their children, but they're their children's first teachers. They are their children's first farmers. They plant those seeds from the very beginning. So as people were asking me about the habits of positivity, writing it down, it became clear that if I really wanted to impact on children in a much more comprehensive and holistic way, writing the books for them and so on and so forth was important, but I needed to train up the parents as well. And oh, by the way, it extends beyond parents, because can I tell you, those posts that you talk about, that really is a labor of love that also fills me. Yes. Everywhere I go, people will say to me, opening those posts is like opening a gift. It's like a surprise.
Yes.
I don't know. Yes. I open it like, okay, what am I going to get today? That it's healing. That people will tell me they open it just at the point at which they're feeling so stressed and so depressed.
Yes.
It's exactly what they needed in that moment. And
that's happened to me twice, doctor. That's happened to me twice. Your positivity pause fed me exactly what I needed at that moment. Like tears are coming to my eyes. And that happened to me twice. And we've known each other now. I've been following for maybe a couple months. And there's 2 times that you hit me right where I needed you that moment, that day, that moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so so on social media, if we measure the impact of what we're doing based on how many people liked it or how many people, you never do anything. It literally, my focus is about just doing the work that I call, that God literally puts in my heart. And he says, this is what I need you to do. And that you are touching lives in ways that cannot even be measured. Don't worry to look at the metrics and the this and the that, because the people who need it are seeing it. It's touching them. It's changing them. It's helping. It's healing. It's regenerating. It's restoring. And just keep keep plodding along. Keep plodding along. So, and when I talk, I have a whole self-care mnemonic, but one of the elements of self-care is self-expression. That's the E. And so creativity and self-expression are the underpinnings of parts of your well-being. That ability to connect into yourself, your soul, and then to allow it to be expressed in however it comes out for you, that you honor this authentic part of yourself, is incredibly restorative. And so that dancing or writing or painting your nails or the way that you dress, I mean, like I said, I'm walking art, all of these places that give you this outlet of this releasing the tension has measurable and very tangible impact on your health, mental, emotional, and physical health.
I mean, we really only have like 10 minutes left. There's so many places I want to go. I'm a card carrying member, like dues paying member of Team Do Too Much. And actually my second podcast guest, her name is Kelly Cully. She is my partner in crime. She's my director. She's my friend. She's my sister. She's everything. And her and I are Team Do Too Much all day long. And it has to be said, like you were talking about self-care, and part of self-care is keeping some of that energy, some of that space for yourself, right? You can't give it all away, even to your greatest follower or your husband or your kids. You have to keep something for yourself. And so I want to talk a little bit about that, how you do that amongst everything you got going on for everyone else. And also, I want to touch like maybe just 1 or 2 of the habits of positivity. What I already know, one very specific thing that we can all walk away with, and that is really creating this community around you, whether it's a tiny community or a big community, but the people that tell you that yes, you can. Yeah. And like your mom and dad, they didn't even tell you, yes, you can. They just said, go do it. It wasn't even a question, right? It wasn't even a question. Go do that. But having someone to call in when you need that sort of reminder or restoration. But yeah, I mean, talk to me about being a card carrying member of literally Team Do Too Much.
I find places of joy in so much of what I do. And I'm really good about setting boundaries. I have gotten much better. And so the things that I enjoy, there's intersection of the things that I enjoy for myself, because ultimately, what you said, you really should be giving from a place of overflow. If you're depleted, you really are no good for anybody else. If you're on your back, can't get out of bed, you really are no good for anybody else. So if you're able to give from a place of overflow where you're constantly recharging. And so I think you have to be true to yourself. Many times we do things because we feel like there are these expectations that you have to do it. Yes. We carry the weight many times of our entire race where to whom much is given, much is required. And so we carry that and we're like, oh, we have to just give it all. We have to do it all. And this is not a sprint. You will be able to do it all. But it really has to be paced in a way that is healthy so that you could go the distance. We don't want, too many of our people are dying. Heart attacks, renal failure in their 40s or their 50s, awful cancers. We need to live to our 90s. Where we live here in Massachusetts, in the inner city Roxbury, the life expectancy there is 50-something compared to the life expectancy in the Back Bay, mostly white community, of 80-something. A 30-year difference. So we have to be disciplined and mindful to understand that, yes, we have a work to do, but we must be very measured in how we do it so that we are able to go the course. And so I think about that. I want to be around for my grandchildren. And so I do set boundaries. I could be posting multiple times a day. I could be getting all kind of bent out of shape about X, Y, and Z metrics. But I'm very disciplined. I post once a day. And if you look at the things that I post, I'm literally posting from places that I have been to, the things that I have done. What I have gotten good at is making, with my phone, like I will capture the moment. I'll make my husband, I can tell you, when you talk about community, my husband, my son, my entire family has mobilized around. This is a family. My dad does the editing. My mom helps me with the curriculum design. My son is taking the pictures and they're in the book. So it's a family. So if you can create a vision with your family, with your significant other, so that you don't feel like you're doing this alone, it literally becomes a part of the fabric and the legacy of your family and your friends. So many of my friends are involved. And I can tell you, when you talk about community in terms of how do I make it through this stuff, the things that bring me joy. Creativity is my superpower. No doubt about that. I'll sit down and I'll write because it comes to me. It literally is about, it comes to me as muscle, like, okay, what is the message for today? God, what is it that you want me to share? And then it'll come and I'll write it down. But I can tell you, I had an experience at 1:00 in the morning. I got called to the hospital to put in a catheter. The 10 people had tried, it couldn't get it in. It was like up to me. The first thing that I encountered when I walked into the ER was a nurse who was like, I had walked into the physician's area. She was like, oh, this is for physicians only. Microaggression, number one. The second thing is,
it's kind of not even really micro. That's not even really macro.
Right? I walked into the room to talk to the patient, an elderly patient and his wife. He was in the 90s, both in the 90s. And I'm standing talking to the patient, and the resident comes in, and he's like, "Oh, are you the registration person?" Microaggression number 2. And then I come out, and I'm sitting, going through, making sure I have all the equipment. I got to go to the OR, make sure I have everything to be able to do this procedure, to get this catheter in. And the white male nurse goes into the room and he's telling the patient, in the presence of his wife, "Oh, don't be hitting on her now. Don't be hitting on her now." Right? So here I am. He's diminishing me, sexualized, because I'm going to be doing something with this guy's penis. So he's now in order to make this patient comfortable, he is now diminishing me and relegating me to, oh, well, don't be hitting on her. He's put me now in this box of the sexual type of thing in this patient's mind in order to make the patient feel comfortable. And I literally could feel my blood pressure beginning to boil. And I have a group of women who are part of, we call ourselves the constructors. We are literally a group that we just support each other in all of our endeavors. And I took a couple of minutes and I WhatsApped them and I was like, okay, I need to blow off some steam right here. I had to release some tension right here because this is a little much. And for me to take care of this patient, I'm going to need to just bring it down. And so I told them what had happened. I said, I need y'all to pray for me. And they sent in prayers. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to reset and go into the patient's room. And to tell you how you talk about reframing positive, this patient and his wife had such, white folks had such a beautiful relationship, married for 17 years. And so I focused on just that energy, that beauty, and the fact that I was the only one who could do what needed to be done for that patient. And so basically I was able to, the habit of positivity, number one. Number three, when you talk about the habits, is to keep the positive and let go of the negative. And in that moment, I had to let go of the negative because it's like the gastrointestinal tract. We constantly taking things in. Some of it's good for us, some is not so good for us. And then we have a system by which it extracts the things that are good and it gets rid of the stuff that's not good. You poop it out. And if you don't have a process, our body does that for us. But if we don't do that, then we literally become toxically constipated and we will literally rupture and we will mentally and emotionally die. So that's kind of how
your analogies, though, can only be like the analogies probably of a urologist. Thank you for putting us down with all of these analogies.
Yeah. So I had to let it go. That's an example. And so I am able to know that I'm called to do these things. It doesn't all have to be at the same time. Like I said, my vision is that I want it to be the cartoon that is already ready to go, but I have to extend myself grace. I have to give myself the freedom to know that I can't do it all at the same time.
That's right.
That these things take time. I have to trust and have faith that I don't actually control this, that there's a higher power that God is. He knows the plans he has for me. And so my faith is very, very prominent in how I go about my day to day. It's prominent in my book, The 5 Habits of Positivity. All of these habits are really based in scripture that I believe and I trust that I don't have to fret, that everything, my steps are ordered, and I have to trust and believe, keep listening to him, not try to get ahead of myself, give myself these positivity pauses. Very important to reset, because you see, when you go, your whole autonomic system, your physiology, between the microaggressions, the macroaggressions, the fact that you feel like you have to, you're supporting how many of us? Supporting family, supporting parents. Like, we're living life in a way we're called to bring so many people with us in ways that the other folks don't have to. We don't have that privilege. So the faith and the trust and knowing that the optimism is not the toxic positivity of the rose-colored glasses, that everything, you just deny everything that's bad, you pretend it doesn't exist, you bury your head. It is the process that I described in our gastrointestinal tract, that we have system organs in place that help us to process our situation, process our challenges, process the things we're going through, be able to keep the things that add to us. So at any point during the day that you stop for meditation, for breathing, for something that adds to you, that helps to elevate you. It might be a poem, it might be looking outside and just noticing the beauty of the sky. It may be anything that just adds and helps you to reset, helps you to come back down to zero, helps your pendulum to come back to center, because life is swinging us to extremes. But we have the ability, at the gravitational force will always bring us to center, right?
Yeah.
But we can limit the extreme to which the pendulum swings, we can take time to pause, to let our system come back to center before we resume. And these are the practices that become a part of your daily life, become habitual, so that I find that automatically these things kick in. I don't spend a lot of time in the doldrums at all. And I'm going to tell you, to read from my book, Not Today Negativity, my life has not been perfect. And we every day, we have the type of challenges that so many of us deal with. But it is the process that helps me to come back to what has added to me and brings me into this place of well-being and joy.
Again, you said like 1,000 things that I could touch on, but I want to, 2 things. It's always remarkable to me when someone reminds me, or even I hear the word breathe, because we forget that. Right. Like to stop and take a deep breath. It's so regenerative. The other thing you said is when people look at you and they say, oh, she's an author, she's a speaker, she's gorgeous, she's brilliant, she's Harvard graduate, and she's a medical doctor, and she's got it all together, and it's always been that way. Like, that's honestly what I think people, when they come look, or if they look at me, oh, she's a producer, she does this, she's got it all together. It's always been that way. Yeah. People do not understand, or they got to understand, because they have their own narrative, their own process, their own life with the ups and downs. But I just think that people don't acknowledge them. I don't know. That's always interesting to me that people look at you and know you for 15 minutes and think it's always been that way, when they know literally like one frame, and there's 30 frames a second in film, 24 now. There's actually 24 in film, 30 in video. Sorry, everyone. So 24 frames per second in film. And we're looking at 2 frames of Dr. Oneeka's life. It's a whole narrative, and that's why, whole life.
Yeah. And that's why I wrote Not Today Negativity. I mean, I'm usually a pretty private person. So to be vulnerable, where I have literally exposed so many intimate details of our lives, my husband and my life, and then my family's life. But it is to help people to see that you really are I'm no different than they are. We all have our struggles. We all have things that we have to deal with. And it's not to say that there are not people who are dealing with just devastating. It's not to dismiss that by any means. But ultimately, we have to make choices. Ultimately, gratitude is just a huge part of how I'm able to come back to center. Right. And so if we can develop the system, if we can develop the discipline, we can do it. We can do it. Yes. I am 100% convinced that anything that we do, nothing that is worthwhile is not hard fought. You have to do the work. And so many people, I think, we live in an instant society. We live in a microwave culture. We live now in a social media where everything is at the tip of our fingers. And I can tell you, this whole chat GPT literally is giving me heartburn, because our imagination and creativity and the opportunities for kids to be able to transport themselves out of their situations and elevate above their circumstances and see other worlds that they can create. I mean, we've created this instant type gratification where we don't have to work. And so people look at me and they think it's easy to say, oh, she must be. It didn't have to have been easy for her. Because the culture of work is being diminished more and more and more. And I love technology, right? I'm a scientist. I love that we are exploring and uncovering better ways to do things, better ways to save lives, better ways to decrease and dismantle racists and the weathering and the disparities. I mean, I love that, but we have to maintain the power to choose how we use these tools and not be overcome by the technology, so that we lose the gift of this brain that we have, this mind that we have. And I think we have to be really intentional with our children, but we have the agency to work hard to accomplish our goals. And so that's what I want people to hear and to see, that it does take hard work. And so you got to do the work. You have to do the work. You can dream big, but then dream big comes with the discipline, using the resources, striving for excellence, being accountable, being motivated, just having the boldness
resilient.
and the resilience. Nothing in life is easy. It just
It really
work.
isn't. Okay. We have to wrap this up. I want to talk about, first of all, you and I met and we clicked right away.
Yes.
And then you sent me the most amazing swag bag. So, okay, listeners, you are going to be very jealous, but you can get all of this stuff. We'll put it in the show notes. You can get all this stuff. First of all, I don't go far without my book. I have it right here. And then I have all of my like candles and salts. These are all Island of Positivity things, moments that you can create for yourself. Scrub. And you can get all of this on the website. Oils. It goes on and on.
Yes.
And I even got one of the yes. So you can get all this in the books on our website. We'll put that in the show notes. But lastly, really quick, you have a ton of exciting things coming down the pike. Some we talked about, but let's just wrap it up. I mean, I know you have stuff going on with the courses of positivity for parents and children, the self-care products that I just kind of showed you and I've been messing around with since you sent it to me, and then the animated series and any future books coming out. Can you run that down for us really quick so everyone is aware of what's happening next?
Absolutely. So big this year is just partnership. So partnering with the American Medical Women's Association, partnering with a number of schools. The schools are already in the Banneker School here in Cambridge, K through 6. They're using the Dee Dee Dynamo Space Series for their outer space curriculum and at all levels. And to see the engagement has been amazing. So really expanding the school systems around the country, that this becomes one of their anchor texts for these types of curriculum is within reach, and it's definitely a focus for this year, continuing to build the positivity series. So the first book I mentioned, but really now focusing on health literacy, health equity, and just solutions, positive solutions, and using this very creative way. So beginning to partner, I could see I'm going to be partnering with one of the community health centers and, boys and girls clubs, and bringing this way to be able to get kids into how are they active in their own health. Because can I tell you one of the scary things? Kids are developing hypertension. We think of it as an old people's disease.
Really?
Children are. So a lot of work partnering with various health centers, health systems, the books, as I mentioned, being in pediatricians' offices, the courses to begin to really teach and train. The Island of Positivity, my vision is for it to become this clearinghouse. It's kind of a watering hole where you can come to and you can download your positivity pause for the day. You can access your course. You can get a little nuggets on what are some of the latest research, because I'm part of this Global Positivity Health Institute, which is looking at really the data and research around positivity in health globally. And Dr. Leon, and so beginning to really have that place where it's a one-stop shop where people can kind of come, and then building out the Dr. Dee Dee, the pitching to beginning to think about how do I get this on the screen, and the Island of Positivity as the merchandising, not just for Dr. Dee Dee Dynamo, but as a place where you can come get your self-care products and you can begin to learn how it is that you just take that pause to just restore and recharge and regenerate. So those are some of the kind of the big things right off the top of my head that really, and of course the speaking and all of the ways of communicating the message is growing. So would love for people to just, tune in, follow me. My podcast, the Positivity Pause podcast has already exists, and I'm going to be starting the second season of that. So a lot of exciting things coming down the pike. So just follow me. Thank you for following me on LinkedIn, and follow me on Instagram between Dee Dee Dynamo and my Dr. Oneeka Williams pages that you can find all across social media, and then the website www.myislandofpositivity.com.
Yeah, we will put all of this in the show notes. And usually at this point, I thank my guests for being here, but I kind of feel like I need to send a shout out to your mother. I want to thank her. I want to send a shout out to your father. I want to thank him for making Dr. Oneeka. I want to send a shout out to your husband. Thank you for the introduction and seeing that we needed to be connected. And then thank you so much for your time. You were so generous just with like your personal story and then your knowledge, like your scientific knowledge. It's always fascinating to hear from any doctor, but you gave us real insight to stuff I would never think of. I mean, some of the situations that a catheter could not be put in, I didn't know that exists. Or the elderly man at the VA that you convinced you that this is where you wanted to be. This is something the layman does not understand that doctors go through. And I think that's important. And doctors, you guys are human too. You're people too. And you rely on us to be responsible and take care of ourselves. And we're in this together, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Team positivity. Let's go.
Yes. All right.
Let's go.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. Like I said, we dropped a lot on you today. We'll put the stuff in the show notes. Thank you and have the best week, Doctor. Thank you, Dr. Oneeka. You're a force. I just can't think of any other way to explain you. I appreciate everything that you shared. Her book is available. We'll put it all in the show notes. Please follow her on social media. You won't be disappointed. She posts regularly, much better than I do. And everything she posts is enriching and you can get something from it. I appreciated her conversations about why she chose to go into urology. That was a very honest conversation. I appreciated her conversations about how she ended up, here in the U.S. and her experiences at Johns Hopkins and the overall just medical school. And I think we said this, but not only does she have her medical degree from Harvard, she has her Master's of Public Health from Harvard also. So thank you, Doctor, for sharing your time. I know how busy you are. And people can follow you on social media. Follow Dr. Oneeka. It's all in his show notes. But thank you so much. And I want to thank my podcast producer, Jared Redding. I want to thank Contavious Jones for the amazing music. And thank you, Dr. Oneeka, for spending this time with me. Truly humbled. I appreciate you. See you guys next week.